Elasticity. All right. So if you are a fan of stretchy sweatpants the way I am, then you are probably quite familiar with elasticity. In economics, however, it's a little different than just having stretchy sweatpants. I'm going to show you a little trick actually, just before we even get into what it is. Nice little trick. We know this chart is perfectly inelastic because it draws an eye. Get that. Draw a little top and bottom there. And then perfectly elastic. Hey, we know this is an E. Look at that. Look at that. Nice little tricks I learned years ago in college. All that money went towards something, right? I know how to draw an I and an E. So that is perfectly inelastic. That is perfectly elastic. Now, what is this concept? Let's talk about it. Some of you might be familiar, some of you might not. Take it as you will. Obviously, feel free to jump around as needed. So if something is perfectly, or not, it could be perfectly inelastic. Like nothing really is perfect. I know, right? None of us are perfect. So like, with all of this, just a lot of economics. We'll talk about perfect markets, perfect this. Nothing's going to ever be perfectly in reality inelastic or perfectly elastic. It could be close to perfectly inelastic. But what am I talking about? So inelastic, think of this: the demand doesn't change based on the price. So gasoline, medicines, we all need gasoline to get to work. We all need medicines because we can't live without them. So inelastic, you see here. So the quantity demanded, see the price has no impact on the quantity demanded in a perfectly inelastic market. It just, right, the price can go up, but this isn't going to move. This isn't going to move. Price can just keep going up. Now, obviously, that's why there are controls and government controls on how much people can charge for these items. Maybe there's not, and it just sucks. But hopefully, more companies step in to sell more of these products and help us out. Not to get into whole geopolitics of all inelastic goods, but yeah, like these are items where again the price of the product increases or decreases regardless of if it does either. The supply or demand of that product does not change, or it minimally changes. Now, in reality, sure, if the price of gasoline becomes $10 a gallon, I mean, it might just not make sense to go to work anymore because it's too expensive. So, yes, nothing's perfectly inelastic. I mean, there is a point where people are going to stop demanding that gasoline. Like medicines, I mean, really sad, but I mean, if you just straight up can't afford them because they're just way too expensive, then yeah, I mean, people aren't going to spend $1 million they don't have on a medicine that they can't afford. So nothing's perfectly inelastic. And then essentially everything else is elastic, right? I mean, if the price of iced tea goes to $18 a gallon of iced tea. I mean, something crazy. I'm not gonna buy iced tea anymore. I'll just buy something else. I'll buy another drink. I'll buy Slurpees. I'll buy energy drinks. I don't know, whatever you drink. That would be an example of elastic. So as the price changes, the quantity is going to change for sure. This is just essentially normal, right? So vacations, if all of a sudden it's crazy expensive to go on vacation, you just won't go on vacation or you do something else with your time. The price of the product or service increases or decreases, the supply or demand of that product changes. Now, keep in mind, this is supply or demand. So, I mean, it could be either, and we'll dive into both the supply and demand of elasticity. Generally, we talk about demand. That's just kind of why I've been referencing demand a little bit more about how, like, oh, people aren't going to demand or want the gasoline or medicines or iced tea. But yes, it does affect supply as well. Here, examples are going to include types of food. Yeah, like if all of a sudden the price of pine nuts becomes crazy expensive, I'm going to eat less pesto sauce. And gosh, am I a fan of pesto sauce? Clothing, we'll run around naked. No, we're just going to not buy new clothing. And most products and services, as most of these can be exchanged for alternatives and are not essential. If anything is essential, then it's probably going to be inelastic. I mean, even the housing market, like you might think, oh, it's inelastic, but you could just live with your parents or rent or something like that, or just go live on the streets of San Diego. Like it depends. But overall, this is how it works. Again, this is in theory. There are items that are more inelastic. Like, sure, can you say gasoline is more inelastic than vacations? I mean, 1,000%. You can say that, but nothing's perfect. Although I'm sure you're perfect. You're as close to perfect as can be. Nice little introduction to items, services, goods, and all that. Supply and demand can be all of these things. We talked a little bit about elasticity, the qualitative factors of it. Let's quantify it and actually give it some numbers. Well, if an item is elastic, that means it is sensitive to price, right? The price elasticity of demand. This is more sensitive. An example of this would be just normal food, normal clothing. Then the implied elasticity is greater than 1. If we have gasoline or medicine, then those are inelastic. They're not sensitive to price changes. That elasticity is less than 1. Now, right, and this is similar to beta in terms of volatility of a stock. They've just got metrics that are assigned to them, regression analysis. There's a bunch of concepts throughout this whole exam that just kind of have this metric pegged to 1. I mean, it's a pretty consistent metric here. And if something is exactly elastic, it's equal to 1. Now, this should kind of make sense, right? Looking at this, so impact of a price increase on total revenue. So if, let's say, beef increases in price, and beef is elastic because people will just go buy chicken. If the price of beef increases, then total revenue decreases because people will just go buy chicken. And if price decreases, total revenue will increase because, right, people will buy more beef because it's cheap. I mean, take this with a grain of salt. Obviously, there's a lot of other factors, but this is just on paper how it all operates. Similarly, if you can kind of think of this like a monopoly. If everyone needs to buy meds, but the price goes up, well, total revenue increases. And if everyone needs to buy meds and somehow the price of the meds drops, total revenue for the pharmaceutical companies will decrease. And revenue is unchanged regardless if it's perfectly elastic, but perfectly unit elastic, pardon me. This is just completely in the middle. No worries here. This is not really, we're not going to really see this. It's more so going to be elastic or inelastic. And wouldn't you know it, whoa, it's the same thing, but for supply. Same thing for supply. I'm not really going to go over it. It's just, we're really going to talk more about demand in terms of elasticity. However, just know that it exists for supply as well. Here are formulas for what we're going to see. And of course, we got the good old percent change formula because that is always important. And we have price elasticity of demand, of supply. And just to make it not as intimidating, right, we don't really have as many formulas as it seems because the price elasticity of either demand or supply is just the percent change in quantity demanded or supplied divided by the change in price. That's how you determine how elastic it is. And this is where we'll get 1 or less than 1 or greater than 1. So again, this is pretty much the same formula for each. So it's really just memorizing one formula here. These two here, to be honest, are not really as important by any means. I mean, know these formulas? Technically, yes. Could these be on the exam? But are you likely going to be asked these? I really wouldn't worry about these at all. So don't concern yourself. They're here. We'll run through some examples with them. They exist. But if you're pressed for time and you don't really have time for them, no worries there. Memorize these formulas and get ready because we're going to run through them. Here's an example of elasticity of demand. All right, well, what's the price elasticity for TVs? When the price of a TV increases from $300 to $375, the quantity demanded decreases from 1,500 units to 750 units. So what's the price elasticity of demand for TVs? First, write out your formula, as is tradition, as is good practice for what we have. Always write out your formula. And with that, it's pretty straightforward. It's what we just had. So plug and chug. First, we want the percent change quantity demanded. Well, percent change formula, new minus the old divided by the old. Now it's 750 units. It was 1,500. 750 minus 15 divided by 15 gives us negative 0.5 or negative 50%. So a 50% decrease. What was the percent change in price? Well, price increased because it went to 375. 375 minus 300 divided by 300 gives you 25%. So as quantity demanded decreases by 50%, or the price changes, sorry, this is the driver, so 25% causes a 50% decrease in quantity demanded. And here's where we get our number. 50% divided by 25%, just plug it into our formula. That gives us -2, or rather, we get an absolute value, so take the absolute value of the answer. Now, here's another example of where you need to practice these formulas, you need to practice the math on the exam rather than just memorizing is quite critically important. However, you memorize and then you practice. So this proves that the price elasticity of demand, right? That proves that the TVs are elastic when price increases, demand decreases. This follows in line with what we saw on our chart. Oh, take a good look at it. Here it is in all practical purposes. Now we have the elasticity of supply example, and some of the numbers are the same, some are a little different. Let's take a look. So same concept, price elasticity supply, same formula, except this is percent change in quantity supplied. This is more from the producer's side rather than the consumers, because consumers are more associated with demand and producers are more associated with supply. As like elasticity of supply, think about it. If the market is willing to pay more, well, then the supply will increase because companies are going to just make more of whatever this item is because they want to cash in on that, right? That trend of there being more demand. So with that being said, let's just plug and chug. Percent change in quantity. The new quantity supplied is 1800 minus the old divided by the old. Now it's going to get us, similar numbers to what we saw here. So this is right. We're going to get again 50% change in price. Again, we're going to get 25%. So what this is saying here is, again, it's greater than 1. The elasticity is 2. This price elasticity of supply proves that this medicine is elastic, as when the price increases, supply increases. You can just think about it, right? Think about it and look at it, what's happening, but also try it numerically, try it mathematically. Give it a good look. Nothing crazy here. I'm really not spending too much time. It's not going to be the most critical item on the exam, just something for you to practice.
Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.